What better way to spend a day off from racing than to participate in another race? So this is the WTRL team time trial in the rolling Highlands. This is the first time I've done this course, and while I got the call of action from one of the main organizers, he sent a message out in Discord asking for any volunteers. They were looking to essentially rebuild the teams because they had essentially enough people to split the teams and add more and kind of, work their magic. And for me, this day off was kind of unexpected. I thought we were going from the 6th to the 12th, no breaks. And when I looked at the schedule yesterday as I was getting my race passes for stages 7, 8, and or 6, 7, and 8, I noticed that there was a date gap. And it didn't dawn on me initially, but like I mentioned in yesterday's video, it kind of came up surprisingly, and I decided to take advantage of it. I thought I would do a zone 2 ride today and just kind of keep it easy. But and then we got this call to action, and I was like, you know what? I looked at the course. I saw rolling Highlands, 9 kilometers. You know, not that much elevation in the 9 kilometers. So I was like, you know what? Why not? And then when I signed up and I got my race pass, I started looking at what other riders were doing, what other racers were doing, watching their live streams, and I saw the all important laps, one of three, two of three, and I started to panic a bit because I did not at all pay attention to the fact that this was 3 laps instead of just the one. Because the one lap, no big deal. Take us 15, 20 minutes to do the 9 kilometers, however long it takes us, depending on the team dynamics, and we'd be good. And so when I saw that it was 3 laps, I kind of panicked a bit. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? I came into this thinking that I was going to do essentially 6 days straight of racing from January 6th through January 12th. I expected to be racing every single day, no breaks. And so that's what I did. I raced today. You can see I'm a little bit off the back, a little further off the back than I want to be. So I have to push a little bit harder just to kind of keep on. But I've got to say, this was probably one of the best TTTs that we've had all, since I joined the team. It was, we did a great job. Everybody, did their best to stay in line in spite of all the ups and downs. We, kept a strong pace, even though you see my numbers jumping into the 300s a bit, here and there. And ultimately, it's because I would either slide off the back a little bit and have to, push hard to kind of keep up, or we were going up a slight hill, and that's just what's required in order to maintain the pace. And so as we start approaching this downhill and rounding the corner, we've got the castle coming up, I believe. Yeah, castle coming up. This is actually one of the more strategic parts of this stage because this steep, 6, 8% incline will really take your legs out from underneath you if you're not paying attention, or it'll break up, break apart the line or the group, and really start creating a dynamic where your team is starting to fall apart. And so that's the reason why I say that this was probably one of the best, probably well balanced groups that I've done with the TTTs, because we were all there, every single hill, every single, you know, decline and descending, we were there. We were all together. We may have bunched up, time and time, here and there, but at the end of the day, we all stayed together. Here I go again off the front, doing my best to kind of hold, you know, so our prescribed pace was at roughly around 3.8. Um, Going downhill, I always find it hard to maintain my prescribed pace. And, in this case, particularly because, riders being, especially going downhill, riders at different weights ultimately end up descending at different paces. And so if I'm going to stay off the front when we're going downhill, I'm going to push as hard as I can to stay off the front, even if it means I have to go way above what our prescribed pace was. And ultimately, that kept us kind of staying in motion and, kept us from bunching up and, kind of that back and forth of you bunch up, you start to lose the draft, and then you ease off the pace to try and recreate the line again so you can draft a little better. And if you're constantly going back and forth like that, then ultimately as a team you're losing momentum because you're not drafting well, you're slowing down, and then you know you're surging to try and keep up, and that's something you want to avoid when it comes to team time trials. So here we are coming up on the end of lap two, and at this point I'm starting to huff and puff a lot more than I thought I would. I was breathing heavy, even though my heart rate's in the 160s. I'm breathing heavy and I'm feeling like maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. But at the end of the day, you know, I was in it for the team victory. And so as we get through the castle again, we all stayed together and just really pushed on through the best way we knew how. And so we're kind of, you know, leapfrogging off of each other, especially on these downhills, leapfrogging off of each other. And one of the things that the team captain at the time mentioned is he's like, as we're doing that, he's like, just if you get off the front, just put in 5 or so second surge, and then let the other people come around you. You see, we all came through the banner, got PRs. I ended up missing, I think on this lap, I ended up missing my PR by 0.4 of a second. So I was at 105 point, I think 2 was my PR that I did on the first lap. And then in this one, I got 105.6. And so it is what it is. I wasn't intending on setting any personal records, but I knew that if we could keep our pace strong, stay above 40 kilometers an hour, especially on the flat parts, stay above 40 kilometers an hour, and then hold a strong pace going uphill, then we would stay strong as a team and finish well. And so as we're getting through this first 1/3 of this lap, we get passed by two teams back to back here, and they flew right through us. I mean, you can see it, even though I'm fast forwarding through this, you can see that they basically flew right through us, and it it was a little bit of a sting. It, nudged my competitive edge. Anytime we get past, kind of it does bother me a bit, but we were still doing good, and we're looking at the team that's coming up behind us, which is DW4. And right now they're at about 7 seconds back. And I mentioned the Sid team like, hey, they're about 6, 7 seconds back, and we just kind of kept our pace going, which felt great. We were staying strong. A couple of us were suffering at this point, even though we were 3 kilometers away from the finish. We're starting to suffer a bit. We got this little bit of a downhill as we're going through this part of the town, knowing that we're coming up to the castle one last time. And so they were like, hey, just strong surge, or not surge, but strong pace through the castle here. So you see me in the 600s for a split second as we come up and over. But again, in spite of how we all felt, we all got through together, which was the exciting part. Because once we got to this little bump in the road, I knew that we were almost done. We were just under a kilometer. And as we start to get into the last round of the Bray, I see the line, and I misunderstood what our team captain said. I thought he said like, "Hey, once we hit the line, everybody just go." So I did what I was gonna do. I launched a pretty strong, you know, attack ultimately up, up the Bray, and, was in the was in, 5-ish watts per kilogram for a split second there. And I saw that I was creating a big gap, and they're like, "Hey, you're really far ahead of us." So I mentioned like, "Hey, no worries. I will ease off and just you guys just slingshot through me since I was already up front. They can maintain their momentum and slingshot through me, and that's kind of what you see happening here. Is as everybody's coming up behind me, they're essentially powering through me, and that allows them to slingshot forward, and we all five come across the line as a team, which is the exciting part. You see, we all end up PRing on this round. I think we ended up with sub 1 minute for this last round. And I think, again, this was probably one of the best TTTs we've had since I joined the team. We were all together, we were all strong, we were all pretty balanced as far as the team. There was a couple guys that were definitely much stronger than I was, and so they were doing a great job at setting and holding a good pace while at the same time keeping control of the line and making sure that we all stayed together. So that was, again, that was a great experience. And while I know it's probably not what I should have done for a rest day, I am glad I did it. Very glad I did it. And hopefully, I will be saying the same thing after tomorrow's stage. So I will catch you guys on tomorrow's installment of FRR.